The first one that popped into my mind was like early in my hunting career. And the reason it resonates with me is it was one of those experiences where you look back on it and you're like, there's no way that this could have happened to anybody else. But anyway, it was me and a buddy. We were out deer season in North Carolina. We were at a friend's property. They had a fire tower. It could fit two people. It was like massive. And I was like, this is really cool. So we just both posted up there early in the morning. We got our rifles. We brought our dogs with us. So the two dogs were sitting in there, and we just had our rifles sitting out. And I'm looking over at my buddy, and I'm like, we got some coming over here. So we both kind of get lined in, and three deer come walking out. And they're probably 150 yards away. And we're like, okay, I'll take the one on the right because I'm on the right, and he'll take the one on the left. So we get our rifles up, and we're like, we're going to do a countdown and then shoot. So, do our countdown and shoot. And I only heard one shot.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Red.beard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and today we've got a fantastic guest for you guys. We've got Kurt Gamache from Born Primitive Outdoor. You guys have seen their gear all around. You've seen their solids. Maybe you've even used some of their gear. But Kurt is going to go into some amazing items that you will be interested in if you're listening into this, and also how he got to the position that he's in from military to now the product development manager and more, wearing multiple hats over there at Born Primitive Outdoor. But I absolutely love this guy. He's a stud. We've got a funny story to tell you. Also, the first time that we met, I kept calling him Patrick, and we're going to talk about that as well, how that came to be. But Kurt is just a stud of an individual. He loves working hard. He loves making products better. He loves providing you with the best possible experience in the outdoors with the gear that they provide from Born Primitive Outdoor, as he works with Bear, the owner of Born Primitive, and many other people along with you, and getting the feedback from you, the consumer, so that he can alter and make things even better for your experience in the outdoors. So with that being said, let's get into this conversation. Actually, before we get into this conversation, guys, don't forget that if you're listening to this before August 18th, get into the $5,000 hunt gear package giveaway. Don't forget to get entered into that. There's no purchase required to get entered. There are ways to earn bonus entries. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions throughout this conversation with Kurt. But more than anything, get into the giveaway. Share it with someone that maybe has been needing to update their gear, their hunt gear, whatever it may be. Go get in. We've got a backpack from Initial Ascent. We have a bow that I used from last year that was basically less than probably 100 shots through it just to get it tuned and ready to go. All of those things, guys, being thrown in over $5,000 worth of gear. So make sure you go get in on that. Have a fantastic day as you enjoy this conversation. Now let's get into this one with Kurt Gamache and Born Primitive Outdoor. Welcome back to the Red.beard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and here we've got an amazing guest for you guys. His name is Kurt Gamache. Now, I named him Patrick when we were working out together, and we'll get into that story a little bit as to what happened there. I'm still not convinced that his real name's Kurt. We'll see if that's the case. But no, Kurt here, he works with Born Primitive. He is the director of operations. He loves product development. He's not a one-man crew, but as far as when it comes to marketing and such, he does a lot of it there in-house. He's got a couple people that help him out, but he is the director of operations there for Born Primitive Outdoors. You guys have seen Born Primitive Outdoors through some of my friends like Dan Staten over there, Elk Shape, and some other people that are rocking their gear. They're doing outstanding work in the industry, and there's a big reason for that is that they have an amazing team and people such as Kurt. But before we get into all of that and the things that we wanted to touch on today, Kurt, who are you, man? In a nutshell, who are you?
Yeah, appreciate that introduction, Patrick. Thanks, John. Yeah, so I'm just a dude that got hired on to Born Primitive Outdoor to kind of run business development, help spearhead some projects, do product design and stuff like that. So my background is back in 2002, graduated high school early, went into the military. So I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. Got stationed in Japan, and I spent my entire 4 years in Japan, which was actually cool. cool experience. I was pretty, I wouldn't say sheltered, but I didn't have a big knowledge of the world growing up. So being a young kid going right out of high school from a small town in Pennsylvania to getting shot overseas, my first experience being thrust into a new culture, that was eye opening. And it was like something I look back on with a lot of fondness, that I appreciate that the military was able to give to me. But that kind of expanded upon my lust for knowledge. I started learning the language. I spoke Japanese pretty fluently when I was over there. I could read and write Japanese, and I just the thirst for knowledge just continued, and I just wanted to seek more and more. I got tired of being in the Marine Corps, got out. I was like, I'm going to go to college and do some other things. I think at this time, like the Jason Bourne movies were pretty hot. So I was like, I'm going to be fucking Jason Bourne. I'm going to go work for the CIA. And they were like, hey, man, like, we don't want to hire some kid who doesn't really know anything. Like, we usually hire guys who are in like special operations. It's like, fuck. So I went back into the Navy, and I just retired from the Navy. Wait, am I allowed to cuss on here? I'm throwing out some.
Well, we broke it anyway. Okay. Yes, of course. Yeah, you're fine. You're good.
I'll try to reel that in just to make it a little easier on you in post.
No, you're good.
So yeah, went to the Navy, just retired last year, a little over 20 years, and it's been a good ride. So prior to me getting out, I was doing an internship with Born Primitive through a program in the military. It's called Care Coalition. They allow you to do an unpaid internship because the military is still paying you. So I did it with the local company here. I'm in Virginia Beach, and had a lot of good mentorship. That's where I first got introduced to Aaron Snyder, Joe Cato. They were some pretty big mentors when I first started here, kind of showing me the ropes of what the hunting industry is all about, and did really well. And then once I retired at the end of July, I got hired on right away to be the director of operations for outdoor. So I've been doing this since, coming up on a year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And, there's a lot of stuff that goes into, being in, special forces, and that's a whole different lifestyle that people don't understand. Like the military is hard enough on whether it be families or even the individual in and of itself. But the things that you were exposed to, the things that you were involved in, definitely changes kind of your path in life, but also the person that you become. And so it's pretty cool that Born Primitive has that opportunity to be able to do that. The basically where you can come in and intern at no pay while you're being paid by the military, so you can have a way to transition out. That's a big thing that I've seen personally from my family being in the military, seeing people that have a hard time transitioning. They retire and then they're like, none of my skills or resume from the military really applies to anything. So I'm starting from square zero at that point. And so that's really cool that Born Primitive has that initiative to be able to help people like yourself as you're transitioning out to apply. Really, there's a lot of skills that the military teaches you that you can apply. It's just a matter of putting it through a different filter than just the military filter that you've had for as many years as you've been in the military. So that's really awesome. And then, being director of operations now. So you really kind of geek out on gear and gear testing and all of those things, it seems like. And you obviously know what gear will work and what doesn't, having tested in some pretty adverse environments with the gear that you were running while you were in the military. So what drew you to Born Primitive versus, some other companies out there that I'm sure also help veterans out as well?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is I grew up on the East Coast from Pennsylvania. My wife is from Pennsylvania. So all of our family and our extended family are all here on the East Coast. I would have loved to go out west, but it just didn't make sense with having kids and everything, moving out there and not knowing anybody and being that far away from parents and grandparents and cousins, something that was big for us growing up. So we wanted to make sure we stayed local to the East Coast. And I'd honestly written off searching for a hunting company to work for. I was like, man, my path was going in different directions. I was looking in like the power industry and like all this other stuff. And I'd originally thought about hunting. I was like, oh, what about some of these companies that have worn their products for years that do really good work? But it's just, and for me, working remote almost like wasn't even in my mind. Like I had heard that that's a thing that people do and can be successful at. And I was like, there's no way. Like I need to be in office. I need to, touch and feel and talk to people and get stuff done. Because that's how I operated for the past, 20 years. So working remote just didn't seem like I would be, I would enjoy it. So, yeah. And it wasn't until it was probably about 8 months before I was retiring, that an organization, a nonprofit organization, does a transition assistance course. It's like 3 months long to help guys prepare writing resumes and doing mock interviews and everything like that. Took us to a bunch of companies local to Virginia Beach. Born Primitive happened to be one of them. And this was in 2002, right when they were getting ready to launch Born Primitive Outdoor with Aaron Snyder. And I came in and they told me the story behind the brand, about what they stand for, their origin, like where they came from. And it really resonated with me. I was able to see all the people in the office that were working here. They employ a lot of spouses of military members. So, just the culture in the organization really vibed with me. And I was like, that's a place I need to be at. So as soon as they got done talking, I hit them up and was like, hey, what do I got to do an internship there? The rest is history. So that's how Born Primitive happened. It wasn't something that I was like seeking. I didn't even know what Born Primitive did or that they were local. Like I'd seen people wearing their gear in the gym and stuff, but yeah, it's pretty interesting how it panned out.
No, that's awesome. And that's really cool. Again, you were out there searching, you put yourself out there, and you were meshing with the people that obviously, there's a lot of military members that are in, that have either worked with Born Primitive or are in the executive kind of suite there with Born Primitive. And so definitely an American brand, that absolutely loves, to support people like yourself as veterans. So that's awesome. Absolutely love to hear that. And then, you jumped on board, you started the internship, and then now as director of operations. I met you, and I probably should have started with this, but met you this past year,
Yeah.
out here at Western Hunt Expo. And we were doing a workout, which it's become a thing we do every Western Hunt Expo, whether it be Dan putting it on or Phorm put it on last year. We've got this gym set up that we like to do a team workout, and so it's not an absolute killer. It's not like a Metcon or anything like that, but it is a good solid grinder, that you get to put yourself through with some people that you don't know. And it just happened to be paired up with you. I had no idea who you were. You obviously look jacked, and you knew what you're doing. You kind of put off those military vibes, but at the same time, I had no idea that you were there with a company, that you were doing whatever. And so, we introduced each other, and I swear, and I will swear to this day, that you said Patrick when we shook hands. Now, there was not another Patrick there, at least that I know of, but the whole entire workout, we're sitting there grinding it out on the rower, holding medicine balls, doing step ups with weight, pushing the sled. The entire time I was sitting there, yeah, Patrick, go, Patrick, you got this, Patrick, stuff like that as we're cheering each other on. And he didn't correct me once. So I can't remember how it was, either via text or something, or no, I was putting your phone number in my phone. You were like, yeah, it's Kurt. I was like, oh.
I thought you were talking because there was three other dudes on our team. I thought you were talking about to one of those other guys.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. Yeah, that was interesting. And I was a little out of it. So the day prior to that, I had done the Mountain Tough workout out there at Western Hunt, and that one kind of crushed me a little bit.
Yeah.
So then that was like a 2-hour workout in the morning. Spent the entire day standing at a booth, talking to people. So I was just like, mentally, I was fucking tapped. Definitely fatigued.
Yes, I'm Patrick today.
Got up early the next morning to do an elk shape workout. And yeah, I was like, I'm just here.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's the whole reason behind Patrick, guys. But no, and then I come to find out, you work with Born Primitive, and I love We haven't had a ton that we've been able to talk about as far as pieces that I've used and such. I've run can't remember the names of it, but I know the light pants, the Frontier Light 1.0. I know the 2.0s are out now. The 1.0s are definitely in my top 3 favorite pants to run out, in the woods. I'm not much of a camo guy when it comes to pants. I like to be able to run them at home and also out in the woods, and to have a little bit of stretch, have the pockets in the right places, and not look like I'm wearing parachute pants with all the cargo shorts that are out there. And so those pants do really well. Haven't tried the heavies, but I feel like my legs don't need as much insulation as maybe some people. So I definitely like that. Also, the places that you put the what's the texture on the knees and the butt that get worn out a lot faster. That texture is awesome.
So the
not having
1.0s, those are like ballistic nylon reinforcements on the Gen 1s of those Frontier lights. Those ended up getting changed in the 2.0. I was just finding that overextended use, exaggerated movements, that nylon doesn't stretch at all, and that was putting excess stress on the seams. So we saw some seams blowing out or stitching kind of starting to come undone where those seams were. And that's just the 4-way stretch fabric meeting up with that non-stretch nylon, which is causing that issue. So, just went back to the drawing board with a lot of, input that the customer had and just collected it all and validated it with other people in the industry. And we're like, okay, let's just go back to the drawing board and redesign this pant to kind of eliminate some of these issues. Still the same pant, still a lot of the same features. Just going to add a bunch of stuff and change up a little tweaks to make it a little more efficient.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the grid fleece, and then there's one piece of long sleeve merino. It's the lighter merino, and those do really well as far as the layering system goes. I like the way you put the hood. That it's not a full zip on the I think it's the quarter zip fleece, the grid fleece. The fit is really good. I don't like things to be super flowy. I like them to fit a little bit more athletically, especially when you're out there on the mountains, so stuff's not getting caught on things. So, and the Tundra Light, I think is what it's called. But the Tundra Light is an awesome jacket as well. So, great job on all of those pieces. Now, let's, I guess, kind of dive into a little bit as far as gear goes, and then we're going to get into some stories that you've got to tell as far as hunting, because you've got a lot of hunting experience, and now you're getting more into the hunting for sport experience, which we'll talk about the difference there, and then of course getting into archery, going from, you've got vast sniper experience. I mean, decades worth of what people call snipers, long range shooting, whatever you want to call it or deem it as the audience there. But you shoot targets and hit them consistently, well over 1,000 yards, and more than that. So let's get into first some gear, and then we'll get into those other things. So what are the changes? So the Frontier Light pant, what are some of those changes that you guys made to the 2.0?
So light specifically, we ended up adding side zips to those pants. That was a very requested item. Like originally, I think when they were designed, it was like, oh, they're a light pant, they'll be fine how they were. And sometimes, doing those Texas or New Mexico hunts, you definitely need to dump a little bit more heat. And I've been wearing them nonstop right now. It's August. It is 100 degrees consistently out here, and I'm always in the light pants, and having those zips on the side just to dump the heat has been amazing. So added the side zip, put DWR on it. There was no DWR initially, and then we added internal knee pad pockets for those who want to run knee pads. That was often requested. And the initial thought was like, you could just put knee pads, over the top, or, most guys don't even run them, but it's like, we can easily throw a pocket in here that you're not going to notice. So if you don't want to run them, then, you just don't have to use them, and you won't even know they're there. So yeah, those were the kind of the small features. And then we took out, like I had mentioned before, that ballistic nylon reinforcement on the knees and on the seat.
Okay. So what is, because there are some two-tone options. And it used to be that the nylon was that second color.
Yeah.
What is there a difference in fabric on the knees and butt now, or is it
It's just a two ply. Sorry, it's a 2-ply self fabric now. So it's the same fabric that is used for the base of the pant is now just doubled up on the knee and this on the seas. Jesus, on the knees and the seat. Try to talk too fast.
Yeah, no, you're good. So that's awesome. And then the side zip is definitely that's a big feature, especially during the hot. Like we're actually able to start hunting in. I'm looking at the calendar here, about a month here in Utah, and it's still going to be hot in August. Going after the velvet bucks and elk in the early season, and so being able to have those side zips and dump some heat. Now, is it a completely open side zip, or is there mesh up underneath?
Yeah, we threw mesh in there just to kind of keep brush out, insects, all of that. So it's mesh lined.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. And then what are some other updates that you guys have done? Because like you said, the Frontier pant is kind of the big one for me that I've noticed just because I like a light pant that has some stretch to it, that you can wear around the house and your wife's not like, why are you wearing camo everywhere?
Right.
And, things like that. But outside of the Frontier 2.0, you've come out with rain gear and other things like that. What are some pieces that you want to highlight there?
Yeah, so we have a layering system that's, very much based off the layering system we're shooting in the military that, level 1 as your base layer, level 2 mid layer, level 3 is your outer layer, and then shells for layer 4. For a long time, we were missing that level 4 system because we wanted to really do a good job testing textiles and putting them through a lengthy T&E process before we slapped the table and said, yeah, these are acceptable to be in our level 4 layering system. So that was a big gap for over a year, not having that option for guys. And for a lot of people, it was like, hey, I love your stuff. When's this coming out? Because we need rain gear. We need a soft shell jacket. So those were the first 2 products that we released for that layer. And the rain gear is a 4-way stretch. It's called the Mission Flex rain gear, 4-way stretch fabric. The textiles comes from a company called Event Technologies, and just a really badass kit. It's a lighter weight rain jacket. I took it out on my spring bear hunt, and it performed pretty nicely up there. The next one we have is just a soft shell jacket. It's fleece lined with like a grid fleece, and it's got some pretty good insulated properties, and it's a wind barrier jacket as well. So those are the 2 newest. Then just released were the Frontier 2.0s, as you mentioned, and then we have some updates coming later this fall to our Tundra jackets. Just kind of tweaking some designs with those, but those are the kind of like the biggest changes that we had. We've been out of, and maybe the ladies listen to this are going to hear me on this, but we've been out of the women's Frontier pants for a very long time, and one of which was like some manufacturing issues, and I don't want to go too far into that, but we made some calls to not go put in reorders for those pants because of certain reasons. We knew it was going to kill us because those pants were received very well with our female hunters. So I was like, okay, I just want to do it right. Let's just not do a reorder. We're going to redesign them with the same as the men's. We're going to offer the same colors because before it was just available in brown. So gave them a bunch more options, redesigned the pant to have the exact same features as the men. Just because of how women's bodies are, the pocket configurations are slightly different because we couldn't fit the pockets in the same spot. It's just how it is when you're designing women's clothing. But those are going to be coming out at the end of August, the women's Frontier 2.0s. So we have we're definitely not forgetting about you ladies out there. We're going all in on the females. We're just wanting to make sure we do it right. It's really hard for a company to dial in the fit for women. We're fortunate in that we have Born Primitive that has been producing athletic wear clothing for men and women predominantly, who are the majority of our customer for the athletic wear. So they're really dialed in with the fit on what women want, and we're taking that knowledge and translating that into the backcountry hunting equipment.
Perfect.
Or clothing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I would agree. There's definitely a lot of companies out there that are for the outdoors or hunting don't really focus a lot on the women's line, which makes sense that can be a little bit more difficult to dial in. And so that's awesome. And it is cool that you guys have that base. So for people that don't know, if you're into the CrossFit space, which obviously Kurt works out, but he's not huge a CrossFitter. Otherwise he would have told us by now. But the
I love it.
yeah. And so I made a joke earlier too. Guys, don't get me wrong on this. I love Navy SEALs, but I did ask him if we could plug his book, and he said he doesn't have one yet. So, I know that's a big thing for you as well. Coming soon. No, but really though, having Born Primitive as people that make amazing gear for a lot of CrossFit athletes, but also people that just go to the gym and want a good fit, want a good solid workout piece of gear. Born Primitive has been doing that for years. And so for them to take that knowledge and move into the outdoors industry, that was a big knowledge base. And like you're saying, being able to have that database of how women prefer their clothing to fit and move that into your hunting line, that's awesome. Brief interruption, guys. Just want to remind you that as we're getting into season, our season's just a week away. If you're listening to this on the day that this comes out, get your gear. If you have any last minute purchases that you need to do, go over to BlackOvis, use code RedBeard10, go snag some gear. Hopefully it'll get to you before season. I kind of wish everyone would be able to get their gear well before season, test it out and experiment with it. But whatever it may be, maybe you just procrastinated, maybe whatever. Go and get your gear over at BlackOvis. Best place to find your gear. That's where I love to go personally. Also, don't forget to get into the over $5,000 giveaway, the Hunt Gear Giveaway Package, where we're giving away a 5K from Initial Ascent. We're giving away gear from BlackOvis. We're giving away a Muley Freak Bino Harness setup, game changer. We're giving away Leopold stuff. Guys, you want to get entered. There's a bow being given away, a basically new bow. I didn't use it in the field last year, tuned it, used it as a backup bow. Fantastic bow, all of those things. Go check it out in the link down below. Get entered in on that so that you can get some new gear and rock the stuff that I trust, that I believe in, that I use, and now you can use. So with that being said, guys, again, there's no purchase required to get entered. There are many ways to get bonus entries. Go check it out and send it to a friend. Now let's get into this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big reason of how we got linked up with Dan, too. Dan is obviously got elk shape, and when we were meeting with him initially, he was like, this seems like a match made in heaven. It's like you guys put out great workout gear that he wears a lot in his gym and in his videos. And we're also backing him up on the hunting side. So it was a perfect fit with Dan, and he's so far loving the product, and he's along for the ride to help us make Born Primitive Outdoor even more successful.
No, for sure. That's awesome. So with that, so you talked about the Tundra getting some updates. We've got the Frontier 2.0. Walk us through an idea of layering for people that maybe, I know a lot of my listeners are Western guys. Maybe you're still figuring out how to dial in a layering system. I know you talked about your level 1 through 4, but what would that look like for you? Say, I know you went on a spring bear hunt this year. You got beat the crap out of, which is great for gear testing and awesome for content. Probably not the best for bear hunting, but talk us through kind of a spring or even a fall, like what your layering system looks like from your lineup, so that people can kind of get a better idea of what they should be looking for.
Yeah. So I'd say the easiest thing is you always want to make sure that you have base layers on you. So it doesn't mean you're always going to be putting them on and wearing them all day, but like having that option is going to be key. Like your body's going to heat up, you're going to sweat. That base layer is there to draw that moisture away from your skin and allow it to dissipate a little more easily. The great part about having wool base layers is even when you sweat and it's in a colder time, maybe early spring, or you're coming up on mid to late fall, temperatures are dropping, having those base layers on as you move and as you're sweating, like they're still going to maintain its thermal properties and keep you warm. So base layers are like a key component to anybody. And some people are different. They don't like wool. It is a little heavier, so that's why wool synthetic blends are amazing. They also don't stretch as much. Like wool, after time, if it's just 100% merino wool, it'll start kind of getting loose, not fitting as well. Some people are just like, hey, I'm only a synthetic base layer kind of person. So like, we have that option as well. That grid fleece that we call the quiver. We have that available in base layers as well. So we have options for guys who have certain preferences. And then for the base layers, you always want to make sure. I mean, this is me. I'm okay with carrying a little bit extra weight if I know it's going to make me more comfortable in the field. So I'll take some lightweight base layers, and I'll also just pack the heavy weights, because I like to take those lightweights off, just throw the heavy ones on at night, and get in my sleeping bag just in heavyweight base layer. So I'm always going to opt to take a light and a heavyweight merino wool base layer on any of my excursions out in the backcountry. And then from there, we have mid-layer options, a full and a half zip quiver, grid fleece. They've got hoods. So you definitely want to have a mid-layer, because that mid-layer is perfect. If you don't want to wear a base layer, you just have the mid-layer on. Or if you want to layer it up, you're going to wear the base layer and the mid-layer over top, provide a little bit more thermal value. It's just, gives you options. That mid-layer is like a very versatile piece. And then, of course, with the outerwear, you have, whatever you're going to wear for your shell, or I'm sorry, whatever you're going to wear for your puff gear, whether that's a lighter heavyweight, and that's going to be determined on, what time frame you're going out. And then, of course, your pants. Our pants fall into our level 3 system. That's our outerwear. But we have a light and a heavyweight variant for that. But yeah, definitely for early spring and late fall, I would highly recommend the heavyweight pants. But those lightweight pants with the proper layering underneath, like you can even wear the light and heavyweight base layers, and you'd be fine with just lightweight pants. So it's giving people options. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of experience with how to properly layer. Honestly, like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just put like a couple layers of clothes on, and just, you have to know that if you wake up in the early morning to get ready to go out and start glassing or start your hunt, like, it's going to be cold. You're going to want to feel like you're going to want to layer up. That's the time where you want to step off from your camp and be cold, because you're definitely going to heat up. Because the last thing you want is to be humping it through like a 3,000 foot incline to get to the top where you're going to be glassing from. You don't want to stop to take off layers. It just kind of like is a little annoying to do that. And plus, if you're with a group of people, you don't want to feel like you're holding them back. So just start off cold, and then you can always put more on. It's easier to do that. Yeah, that's kind of my advice for layering. It's pretty simple. It's not something to like spend too much of your brain power on figuring it out. You don't have to do math or anything. So it's like, just put some clothes on until you feel comfortable.
Cool. I like it. Keep it simple.
Yeah, right.
That's definitely, the KISS principle, right? So that's awesome. And I do like that you have it labeled as, level 1 through 4 layering system that keeps it simple.
Right.
1 obviously being the lighter weight stuff all the way up to the outer layer of 4 with the soft shell. Now, does your new soft shell, does it have some water repellent tendencies, or
Yeah.
it's
So
obviously not waterproof, but
yeah, it's got DWR on the shell. So
okay.
The membrane on the inside of it is like a wind barrier membrane, and then it's got the fleece lining. So it definitely will cut the wind and keep you warm. And then when it starts dumping on you, it's got some DWR there. But just everybody should know, like, DWR is great when you have a new product. You'll have to eventually reapply it. If you purchase this product, you get it through a number of washes. Like, that DWR will eventually wear off. That is just a treatment that is applied to the external part of the fabric. Like, you would absolutely have to reapply it if this is a product you're going to continuously wear and wash.
Yeah. And I do want to hit on something else too that's interesting about your rain jackets. And you mentioned it, the 4-way stretch in the rain jacket. There's not really anyone else that I know of. Now, I don't know every single company out there, especially the non-hunting brands, but I don't know of anyone that has a rain jacket that's a 4-way stretch rain jacket. Now that's I've got some different rain jackets. They're pretty loud. Some of them are a little bit more quiet than others, but they don't stretch nearly as well. They do a great job keeping water out, but it definitely, doesn't move with you as well either. So usually get a size up so you can move around a little bit more or something like that. Put it over some other layers.
Yeah.
I guess, why did you guys choose to go that route? And is it something that obviously you've tested and you're confident in, with it being a 4-way stretch and waterproof?
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing, is right. Is like you want maximum waterproof ability, you want flexibility, and you want it to be quiet. Like you can't have all of those. So if you go a little bit more leaning into it being a 2-way stretch, then maybe you can sacrifice some waterproof rating and still have it a little bit more quiet. But if you want something that's going to be bomb proof, like you're going to be in BC and you're living in this thing, it's going to be dumping on you for 2 weeks straight. You're going to want some hardcore rain gear. Like that shit is not going to be quiet. So it's just up to the hunter or the individual to know their environment, know where they're going to do a terrain study, do historical atmospherics on the area you're going to be going into, before you purchase your rain gear. So for this run, and there are companies that have 4-way stretch rain gear. I made sure to do like good market research to see what was out there and what other people were using. I don't know what I haven't seen, and that's probably why you don't know, is like a big push for them to market that rain gear. For us, it's easy because it's our only kit of rain gear right now. So we are marketing that and pushing that in our social channels and like on paid advertising and stuff. But when we first sought out to design rain gear, we took lessons learned from the past, stuff we got issued in the military that was bomber, but it was like, you were wearing a paper bag. It was just super loud. It didn't breathe, so it felt like you were wearing a trash bag. It was just, but that's what you needed, because you needed to be able to rely on this thing. You're not getting a resupply of rain gear if you're sitting in the field in some village in Afghanistan. So it has to last you. And again, you're going to sacrifice something to get that durability. So we wanted something that was kind of like middle of the road in as far as durability. We wanted better noise discipline than you would get with something that had a higher waterproof rating. So we understood these, and so we went with a 4-way stretch material because we knew the guys that were going to be wearing this rain gear were guys like Aaron Snyder, who did the majority of our testing, guys that throw on heavy packs and go on 20-mile humps to get into a position that they're going to be in, where he's going to be out in the field for, he goes and guides up in BC for like 2 months a year. So, and he's going to be wearing this stuff up there. So it was very important that we had the functionality with a moderate durability, but still able to be quiet for those guys who maybe have to wear this on a stalk or something. So I think we definitely hit the mark on achieving our goals for this rain gear. Now, again, it's our first run at it. I think I'm already identifying improvements that we can make, and that's the nature of like how my brain works. Is like as soon as I put something out, I'm like seeing things about it, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have did this different. So, but it's cool. It's like never be pleased with what you do. So like always trying and improve. That's just the mentality they have. So I'm just taking notes on everything. And if it makes sense to kind of redesign it, then we're going to do that. Or if it makes sense to, hey, let's take these lessons learned and put them into a different product, then that's what's going to happen. But having that good like after action report, people talking about it, our product testers giving us great feedback. It's been doing really well. Yeah. Did you ask about the soft shell? I think you just asked about the rain gear.
Yeah, no, just the rain gear. I know the soft shells, people are familiar with a soft shell. Having the grid fleece. Now, I guess maybe for people that don't understand the difference between just a fleece lining and grid fleece, kind of break that down as well. Just what's significant about having a grid fleece, other than it, in my opinion, it looks cooler because it's got designs and patterns in it. But outside of that, what's the benefit of that versus just a fleece lining?
Yeah, I mean that's honestly part of the game, is like you want to wear some stuff that also looks cool, because that's going to make you feel better. It's going to make you hunt better. If you wear Born Primitive stuff, you're going to kill everything. So grid fleece is interesting. We got issued grid fleece back in, that was part of our like layering system, was a full synthetic grid fleece base layer, and we had like a mid layer as well. Back in 2006. Is probably the earliest I can remember as part of our like PCU primary combat uniform loadout. And the whole concept behind it is you could have this fleece textile that has about a 20% reduction in weight just because of the channels that are cut into it for something that is comparable to its weight. So if you have a 200 GSM textile and then you cut the grid pattern into it, like you're reducing the weight of that fabric by about 20%. In addition to that, you're also opening up those kind of like miniature air pockets within that fabric to allow better breathability. So it was kind of like a very cool, innovative piece of kit back when it first came out. Now, like everybody's, making grid fleece stuff, but that is probably the biggest thing. You still have a fleece, but now it has reduced weight and better breathability. Now, you sacrifice something for that, right? You can't just get it all. So what you do sacrifice is a little bit more reduction in thermal property. If you had a 200 GSM straight up fleece, that would feel more warm than a grid fleece. But
no, that makes sense. That's cool. And I kind of figured that's what the reasoning for the channels in there was, just a little bit more airflow.
Yep.
But that makes sense, and that's cool. I think that's a good idea to add into the soft shell that you've got. And again, the grid fleece, the quiver that I've used definitely does its job, does a really good job as that mid layer. I personally like the quarter zips on layers, but obviously you've got the full zip as well, and you can wear that, again, it being solids, you can wear that around town, and the Born Primitive logo looks cool, but it's not something that's like blatantly hunting with antlers and all this other stuff going. Well, I guess it does have antlers, but it's not like that is the main thing of the logo. It's a portion of it, and so it doesn't stand out to other people as, well, that's got to be a hunting brand. It's a cool logo, and it fits really well with the simplicity of the design and being able to wear it around town and up on the mountain. So you guys did an awesome job with that as well. So
thanks.
with that, is there anything else that you're obviously you're constantly working on stuff? You can't necessarily tell us things that are going to be happening next year, but is there anything that you're interested in spilling some beans on for people to look forward to maybe later this year?
Yeah. As you had mentioned previously, like I've spent a long time wearing a lot of premier brands, a lot of their products. A lot of times, like some of those brands, like that was the best stuff that was on the market back in the day. So like, Arc'teryx and Sitka, and like used all of it. And it's great stuff. So I know what good gear is. So my only challenge is like, I just don't know how, for me personally, how to design it to get to that point. I'm trying to figure that out. We have some great product designers here. Sourcing materials, all of this stuff is like new to me. But that's like something I'm very passionate about. So that is the most fulfilling part of my job right now, is like getting to design new products. And I find that like a lot of guys coming from a military background, that resonates with them. I don't know what it is about being able to create something like this that, people are going to put their lives in your hands, basically, like to wear, to take out into the field. Like if this product fails on them, like they could potentially be, in a very poor spot. They could potentially lose their life if they're in a scenario where your products fail. So this is like, for me, this is a no-fail mission. Like I have to create really, really good quality gear for people to put to the test. And, that's the extreme case, right? But I don't ever want to design something that isn't going to hit that mark. So if I'm intentionally making a product, I want to make it so that it'll like withstand that extreme case. And then it's going to be good enough for everything else, for the normal person who isn't going to go out on a 30-day British Columbia backcountry excursion.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of my mentality, and that was the mentality I took when I was in charge of training my guys in the military as well. It's like I want to train to the hardest scenario, and then we can walk it back from there if we're not fighting an enemy that's that's sophisticated.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, product design, product development is all pretty exciting to me. the first thing that I did when I came on board was, this was August of 2023. I was like, okay, I know what we're doing for 2024. I need to be looking at 2025 and 2026. So immediately got together with Aaron, some of the other key stakeholders in the organization. It was like, hey, let's come up with our list of 2025 products, and we just need to get cracking on this, because I know it's going to take time for us to source the appropriate fabrics, to get the test samples, really to get the fit samples, and make sure everything's going to wear well, and then get the T&E samples. And that T&E process, like, we're still going through it right now with the 2025 products, where everybody's out there wearing those products right now. We're still not sure if, some of those products are going to pan out. It could be like, we don't like how it wears, or it pills too bad, or whatever. So we're going to make that call. I'm introducing a couple more wool products to our line next year. And the wool is kind of new for, Born Primitive out there. We have the synthetic, mixed base layers, but really we don't have any other products. So that's, an initiative that I have. Plus a gap we have is like some of the more extreme cold weather environments. So I'm going to start incorporating some of those products into our loadout for next year as well. So we've got some really exciting things coming. And, I love kind of designing, testing, and evaluating products. That's kind of my passion, in addition to all the other duties that I have with Born Primitive Outdoor. But yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's really cool. And, it's always good to, hear it from different companies. And I don't think people realize this unless they talk to people like you or work with specific companies in general, how long ahead of time you got. It's not like you just came up with an idea and you're like, all right, next month we're launching this.
Yeah.
It takes time to wear it. You got to trust the people that you're sending it out to get some reps in the field with it. People that are going to use it day in and day out, see what works, what doesn't. All of those things are things that take time. There's obviously I'm wearing the Montana Knife Company hat, but they order their steel 8 months to a year ahead of time for a launch that's happening 8 months to a year from now. They have to guess, how much is going to be sold at that drop. And it just blows my mind when I'm like, man, sometimes I don't even have tomorrow lined up on my kids' schedules, and so I feel like a lot of people are that way. They feel like that, and they're wondering why it's taking so long for things like the rain gear or the soft shell to come out. But when it does come out, you guys have put it through its paces. You guys have done everything that you need to do to make sure that it's, like you said, gonna hit the hardcore market, but also you can walk it back to people that maybe aren't going to go spend 2 months in British Columbia at a time. So, all of that to be said, you obviously take time and care in what you guys are doing, which I think is awesome. With your gear, you're not just putting stuff out just to put things out there, and you use it as well. That's something that you go out and you trust. You put your own life on the line when you're out there in the cold or the heat, and making sure that it works in all these adverse conditions. So all of that is just, it's awesome. It's good. It's good to know that you believe in your own products, obviously, but that it's tested by the time it hits the market.
Yeah. And that's a testament, I think, to the flexibility of the company, allowing us the leeway. We're not corporate. We're not public. We're still a relatively small organization. So that gives us that flexibility and that agility to make those moves. Granted, we kind of sometimes get caught up in the like, hey, what's the next product, because that's new revenue stream. Let's get that out. I think any business or business owner is going to run into that. We're like, hey, we need to make more money. We think this product's going to be hot. We need to get it out. But then like something's always happens. It's like doing a remodel on your home. Like it's never going to be finished on time and in budget. You know what I mean? So product design is very similar. Something's always going to go wrong, but if you allow yourself to feel like that timeline you set is set in stone, that's going to cause you to make decisions that could adversely affect the product. So there were a number of times, like with the ladies' pants, I was like, hey, we set this date, so we don't need to rush our own date. If it's not ready yet, like nobody's kicking down the door of Born Primitive saying, when are these ladies' pants coming? Like, we're getting a lot of messages, but at the same time, it's like, I want to release a good product. If it's not ready by the time we needed it, like, let's just push it and make sure it is ready. We're designing some footwear now as well. And it's like the same thing. We started it last year and here we are early last year. So we're not looking until early next year of it being finished. So that's 2 years of product development that goes into making sure something is done absolutely right.
Now, is that, you just said footwear, so I know that Born Primitive makes an awesome gym shoe.
Yep.
Is this footwear for the outdoors branch?
So no, this is going to be more of like, we still haven't like, I mean, we kind of branded it, but it's definitely not, it's not a backcountry hunting boot or anything like that. This is going to be more in line with, I guess, a hiking, more of like an aggressive hiking or approach shoe.
Kind of like a
It's going to be lightweight summer boot. It won't be Gore-Tex or have any other waterproof properties. But really excited. I keep looking over here because we have the latest photo sample to T&E. But yeah, really excited about it. We've all worn Merrills and Solomons and Loas, our whole career. That's like, what we wear in the military. So something along the lines of those like really aggressive hiking shoes is what this is going to be. So we also have Born Primitive Tactical that has like some military and law enforcement apparel. And these I think will be more appropriate for them, but I'm definitely going to wear these on some of my hunts for sure. Like
hiking and total archery challenge and early season dry hunts. Yeah.
If I go out do a South Dakota mule deer hunt, like I'm wearing those things. So definitely not
Texas,
a North Idaho boot, but these are going to be great for I guess lowland hunts.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah. So again, constantly developing. So that's awesome. Little sneak peek into that for people looking for some lighter weight boots. Is there anything else you want to hit on the gear side before we move into your hunting stories? You said you smiled before we got on the podcast. You had one in mind that you wanted to share. Yeah. But is there anything else on the gear side before we move on to that you'd like to share?
Man, I think we could talk about gear for the next 2 hours. I enjoy talking about it and getting your ideas because it's like I value the tacit knowledge that everybody brings. It's like, what worked for you, what didn't, because I want to use that to generate ideas or to make tweaks on some of the stuff that I'm doing. That's why I have like a wide array of product testers to shoot this stuff out to, because if it was just Aaron Snyder, like he's going to give me what he prefers, which is like, honestly, like Aaron is an amazing product tester, but he's also willing to put up with more shit than the normal person would be. He's like, oh, it's fine. I didn't really care. But this other guy's like, oh, this fucking rubbed me, like, and I get a little rash. It's like, okay. So everybody's a little different. So you just have to shoot it out to a bunch of different people.
We'll just throw some ibuprofen on that. We'll be
exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Well, I mean, you guys heard it here. So as far as gear goes, if you've run some gear, you have any questions or anything like that, always feel free to reach out. I know you guys are pretty responsive with getting back to emails, or if you have any questions, definitely make sure you reach out. And that's a big thing too. I've got personally, it's kind of, I wouldn't say a pet peeve, but when people reach out to me, like there was some backup on, I think it was SheepFeet, and I was posting my podcast with Caleb over there at SheepFeet. They're launching some new stuff. They had some backups, and obviously can't talk about what that problem was as they're shifting things in before the launch. But they apparently had sent an email out, but I didn't know about this. And so, a ton of people were messaging me, well, I ordered them this date, blah, blah, blah. I haven't heard from them and all this. And my first question is always, well, have you reached out? And like most of the people are, no. I'm like, well, like, reach
That's
out.
That's a typical dude.
It's like, yeah. It's like, what are you scared of? Go reach out to them. Yes, you're putting a comment on a post, but send them an email, reach out to them, on the DMs. And sometimes those DMs get put in a different folder. So you don't know what's happening, but I guarantee you, especially if it's companies that I personally work with or use or talk about, I know a big portion for me anyway is customer service, because I want to be treated good as a customer, and I want the people that I refer to a company to be treated good as well. And so that's usually my first question. And I bring that up just because, again, with what Kurt's saying here, guys, if you have questions or you have those little rubs or whatever's happening with your gear, don't say, oh man, I just spent, $180 on this pair of pants and now it's not holding up to what I need, and throw them aside. Like, reach out to them and let them know there's definitely some kind of fix that they can make sure that, you get walked through, because you guys want people to use your gear and you also want the feedback. So my little 2 cents there. I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I love it, man.
With that, so let's get into some hunting stories. So again, I love it when I ask questions and people get this like distant look and kind of chuckle. And you got that whenever we were talking about hunting stories. So obviously there's at least a good one. I'm sure you've got plenty of them. But walk us through some hunting stories. Maybe pick 2 that you want to talk us through.
So the first one that popped into my mind was like early in my hunting career, and the reason it resonates with me is it was one of those experiences where you look back on it and you're like, there's no way that this could have happened to anybody else. But anyway, it was me and a buddy. We were out deer season in North Carolina, and we were at a friend's property. They had a fire tower. It could fit 2 people. It was like massive. It had these like 3 bowling alley lanes that they, peppered corn on, and it was cool. And I was like, this is really cool. So we just both posted up there early in the morning. We got our rifles. We brought our dogs with us. So the 2 dogs were sitting in there, and we just had our rifles sitting out. And I'm looking over at my buddy, and I'm like, we got some coming over here. So we both kind of like get lined in, and 3 deer come walking out, and they're probably 150 yards away, not very far. And we're like, okay, I'll take the one on the right because I'm on the right, and he'll take the one on the left. So we get our rifles up, and we're like, we're gonna do a countdown and then shoot. So do our countdown and shoot. And I only heard 1 shot, but the deer I shot at just fell down right there, and the other 2 just ran off. And I'm like, look over at him, and he's just shaking his head. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, dude, because the dogs were in here, I normally don't put my rifle on safe. I put it on safe just in case it got knocked over. And I wasn't thinking about that. I pulled the trigger, and your weapon was on safe, so I didn't shoot. And I was like, you fucking idiot. I was like, all right, well, let's go get my deer. You can help me clean it. He's like, no, let's just wait. And I was like, why? He's like, the other ones might come back. And I was like, no way, man. They won't come back. He's like, we just killed its mom, you know what I mean? So it's, I was like, okay, we'll wait. And sure enough, like a couple minutes later, the other 2 came walking back and started eating corn right next to the deer that we dropped. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we have 2 more deer. So I was like, okay, let's do another, countdown. And so we get up, and countdown goes off. Boom, 1 shot goes off. And he looks over at me, and I'm shaking my head now. And he was like, what happened? I was like, dude, when you told me that you put it on safe, because the dogs were in here, I was like, that makes so much sense. I was an idiot. I should have done that. So I put mine on safe. It's like, I didn't even think about it. So now this exact same thing happened to me. And now he's calling me an idiot. But those mess ups that you have obviously create the best memories, especially when nobody gets injured or anything like that. But we went down and collected our deer and had a good time. But like whenever somebody asks me to tell a hunting story, that's always like the first thing that pops into my mind. It's so embarrassing, but I love telling stories like that because everybody has a story that they can relate to. Like that resonates with somebody because everybody's done some dumb stuff on a hunt. They're like, I was way smarter than that. How did I let that happen? But honestly, like the reason that sticks with you is to like make you a better hunter moving forward. So like I like to keep that near and dear to me. So now literally every single time that I have a weapon in my hand, it's always like that's, I'm always checking that. No, you could argue I should have always been doing that in the first place, but it's like you get complacent. You don't think you take things for granted, place more importance on one thing over the other. And it's just a lesson we gotta learn. But that's probably one of my more fond hunting stories that isn't very sexy and, just a great lesson learned. Because again, like I had mentioned before, I'm always about trying to improve myself and improve what I'm doing. And that is just a very profound moment where I'm like, I need to be better than that.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, wait until you wait until you range. So my first year elk hunting, uh, I ranged kind of some different spots. I was sitting in this kind of almost an overlook. I had a side hill right in front of me, and I'd been sitting there for a while. Everything was chattering around me, but I hadn't seen any elk. I knew they passed through the saddle, and some crossed, on the other side of the saddle. Is too far for bow range. Um, and then I had one come in silent as can be. And again, this is my first year with an elk tag, September 1 of that year, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, I've practiced everything. I've even practiced holding at full draw because I know the idea that the animal is going to stop. Most inconvenient time, you got to hold. And anyway, I ranged some different spots, and I think you mentioned this in the podcast with Dan, just getting some different ranges on spots so you don't have to rearrange when that animal's right there. Well,
Yeah.
I'd ranged this log that was kind of like this at an angle, had fallen over in an angle, wasn't laid all the way down. Well, this elk comes up, I get to full draw, and I went back and watched the video, which this is a good reason why you should video stuff, because it's fun to have you can get a little GoPro for a couple $100, strap it to your head, and you may not get the best footage, but it's cool to have this footage. But anyway, I went back and watched it. I was at full draw for almost 2 minutes with an 80-pound bow. And I'm just following this elk as it goes back and forth across the side hill, and it finally stopped, and it stopped right in front of that log that I had ranged, and I was like, oh great, that's 40 yards. So I put my 40-yard pin on her. It was a cow. 40-yard pin on her right in the vital spot. Man, that broke. Even though I had been at full draw for almost 2 minutes, broke as clean as can be. I was like, man, this is great. And I heard a loud crack like it hit the tree. I was like, dang it, ran off. There was no blood. Well, my dumb self had used the pin that was for the tree in front of her, not raised the pin up to where it was a couple yards back. And so anyway, don't let that happen. That's even worse than the safety not being taken off. Cause you're like, I mean, it was perfect scenarios, like day one of elk hunting. Man, I wasn't saying this is easy, but I'm like, man, I'm so lucky to be able to get a shot off. Held it, for so long, and I feel strong, clean break, everything. Watch the arrow fly right into a log.
But dude, that's an important lesson learned, because like in archery, like those 3 yards can be a big difference. So no, I mean, I love hearing failure stories like that, especially when you're introspective enough to recognize it and then actualize it. So like make improvements on your form or what you're going to do. So it's like, dude, absolutely.
Exactly. And how's it feel to not have to use a kestrel when you're out with a bow?
Yeah, I mean that's nice, but honestly, like using those tools it was so easy. Like I was shooting long range so much that it just became second nature. And then you get to the point where you're shooting in an area so often that you don't even need the kestrel anymore, and maybe to get your density altitude or this, but you can read and get a good wind call, or you can use veg to make a wind call. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
Not too bad.
So you've recently swapped over to bow hunting. And that's something that what was your main reason for archery? Obviously, again, you're a very skilled marksman. You're one of the people that I would say is great shooting out 1,000 yards at an animal and will kill the animal. Obviously you've got all that experience in the world. Why did you switch over and make it a point that you're going to be doing archery from here on out? Obviously a personal decision, but why is that?
Yeah, again, it's just a personal pact that I made with myself. I'd been shooting long range. I killed a lot of animals with a long range gun. Done a lot of pig shoots out of helos, and like had a lot of great times with a rifle. I got to the point where I was on a hunt in Texas, and this was again for training for the military. But the best type of training is live tissue training. So if I'm taking a weapon system or a new round down range, I want to test its terminal ballistics. So the best thing to do is go on a hunt and shoot a pig and see what it does to that animal. So I did this hunt. I think it was for All Dad out in Texas, and I started getting to the point where I was killing animals, and we were killing a lot of animals, and I was just like felt empty inside. Not that, you know, it was meaningless. It was more like I didn't have the connection to the hunt that I was seeking. It was almost like I was just going out there and pulling a trigger, and then that was it. But for me, I made the decision, like, I really want the aspect of the hunt to be something that's very intimate with me, and I wasn't getting that with shooting a rifle. So it wasn't that I just wanted to make it more challenging on myself. It wasn't that I felt like I was too good of a shooter. It was just that I was seeking something else that I wasn't able to get by shooting with a rifle. I wanted to be able to find an animal at, you know, 2,000 yards and then start my hunt, get up as close as I can with a bow and take a shot that way. So for me, being able to use all of the stuff that I learned in the military with, you know, light and noise discipline, wind, approach angles, land navigation, you know, field craft, all of this stuff I wanted to apply because I wasn't in an area in my life anymore where I was doing that consistently for my job. I was seeking that in my hobbies and in my personal life. So that's why I made the decision to switch over to just shooting a bow. Felt a little more intimate and kind of gave me that thrill, I guess, that I was seeking, or that value that I wanted out of hunting. Yeah, and it's obviously it's way more difficult. Like I'm less successful shooting a bow right now. Last year I harvested one animal, but like that's fine with me. Like I went on that spring bear hunt, and again, like I know everybody will tell you, like, why the hell are you trying to hunt spring bear, spot and stalk in northern Idaho with a bow? Like your probability is very low, but it's like the kill is less. Like I'm going out there with the intent to try and kill a bear, but honestly, if that doesn't happen, like the hunt is what I'm seeking. Like to get to that point, to get out there, to just be outside, to find the animal, to stalk up on it. If it doesn't pan out, then so be it. Like, you know, I no longer am trying to rest my laurels on showing people that I can kill. You know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's a really good it's a really good explanation, I think, for a lot of people that, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't say anti rifle hunting or anything like that. But it's a good explanation that it's a personal decision. You're not saying that rifle hunting's easy, but for you, it's more fulfilling at this point. And you notice that, and instead of just giving up hunting, you're like, well, I can make it more difficult or more of a challenge or more intimate for me by going into the archery realm. And so that's
that's the beauty of this country. It's like, if I had an injury that prevented me from drawing a bow, like then I'm going to shoot a rifle, or I'm going to shoot a crossbow. It's like having the flexibility to be able to do that. Like I'm just exercising my personal preference on how I want to accomplish that. Because at the end of the day, that's a personal goal, is like to go out and hunting and harvest an animal for my, you know, to use for myself and my family. Now, if the game changed and I had to go out and I had to take an animal because my family's life depended on it, like our sustenance depended on that, like I would absolutely take every advantage I could to make sure that happened. Whereas right now, you know, I don't need that to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very well put. You definitely have a higher success rate with a rifle, but it's definitely more, I feel like it's more intimate with a bow from my limited experience that I've had in hunting, and absolutely love using a bow. The time of year, getting to hear the animals in the rut, and also being able to get in up close and personal, and being even more intimate with the surroundings. So your lighting, your wind, your, you know, mountainous features, things like that. Just figuring out what, you know, how you can utilize those to your advantage is definitely a lot of fun. So, let's see. With that being said, is there anything else that we haven't hit on yet that you're interested in sharing with the audience?
No, I think I'm good. We've been on this for a minute. It's always interesting getting on podcasts because I'm not a dude that typically talks a lot. So this seems like easier than I thought it would be being on a podcast with somebody. I remember the first one I ever did was with Aaron Snyder, and he was like, they typically go like, an hour, hour and a half. And I was like, how the hell does somebody talk that long? And then we did his podcast, and we were on for like a little over 2 hours. Because we were talking about stuff that was interesting and, leading questions, and it didn't feel like 2 hours. So I totally get it. But, no, I feel like we've probably taken up the time of the people listening to your podcast. And, if they have any other questions, they can obviously reach out to you and say, hey, bring this dude back and let's talk about, XYZ. Maybe, I want to hear more about, his loadout or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm always on board to come back.
I do have one question for you here. Let's see. We've got actually two. When you buy, oh my gosh, I forgot about this one. When you buy Born Primitive jorts, do you have to register as a deadly weapon?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, only if you get the 5-inch ones, though. So there's a 5-inch and a 7-inch inseam. If you get the 5-inch, then that's when you got to register.
And then this other one that I picked out, these are just from people that are on. I've got a channel where people can ask questions to the guests, and so I pick out a couple. Here's the second one, just here to wrap it up. If you had to start over, what Born Primitive pieces would be essential to have? So we kind of went over that a little bit, but I guess what they said pieces. I'm going to say if someone was to grab 4 items today, they have nothing from Born Primitive. They only have it in their budget to grab 4 items. Yeah. What would you say?
I mean, even 4 items is a lot. You can get a lot done with 4 items. But yep. I would say I can even narrow it down to one. Like the pants, the Frontier 2.0 pants, like those have been flying off the shelves. They're a number one seller. The 1.0 version were that way as well. This new one, we lowered the price. We're getting hit on a lot because the price point was too high on the earlier versions. So I found a new manufacturer, went back to the drawing board. So the new pants, the heavies are $159 and the lights are $139. So we lowered the price like pretty substantially on those to make them more affordable for people. So I would definitely say the Frontier pants. And then you can never go wrong with, people probably already have mid layers and puff gear that's pretty sufficient. So I would say probably base layers, honestly. A lot of people are lacking base layers. Maybe they just feel like they don't need them, or it's a kit that's not really, essential. So I would say base layers.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, I appreciate your time here on the podcast. I know you're obviously a busy man out here working your butt off for Born Primitive Outdoors. But guys, definitely go check out what Born Primitive is doing over there with their outdoor lineup. And also, if you're looking for some good gear for your gym and your gym equipment that you want as far as a clothing line goes for you, maybe your spouse, your girlfriend, whoever, definitely go check out Born Primitive and Born Primitive Outdoors, what they have going on. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or reach out directly to Born Primitive Outdoors, and they're more than happy to answer your questions as well. And they love to hear your feedback. As long as you're being productive, don't just be a jerk and be like, oh, it's an ugly color or whatever. But, give some productive feedback. If you have feedback, they're definitely open for that. So with that being said, Kurt, you want to send anyone anywhere specifically other than the Born Primitive website and the Instagram?
Yeah, appreciate it. No, I mean, that's all I got. BornPrimitiveOutdoor.com. Instagram is @BornPrimitiveOutdoor. And then we got a YouTube channel that is @BornPrimitiveOutdoor. Not much content going on there right now. But we're going to start. We got plans. We just hired a videographer in-house. We have plans to kind of start building that out a little more to give a little bit more educational content back to our customers. So, yeah, Born Primitive Outdoor. Thank you. Appreciate it, John. Great podcast. Had a good time, man.
Of course. It's always fun having
Patrick. Sorry, Patrick.
Yeah. Patrick Gamache. No. Thanks so much, Kurt. I really appreciate it. Guys, definitely go check them out. I'll leave the links down below where you can check out your Born Primitive Outdoors gear and everything that they're doing right now. They're just crushing it. So absolutely appreciate your time, Kurt. And as you guys know, what I always say, get out, live your life, and love it. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. Kurt is just a great individual. He absolutely loves the outdoors. He loves hunting. He's got a passion for constantly bringing you the best gear possible. And I'm sure you heard that throughout this conversation. So definitely drop a comment down below if you have any questions for Kurt, anything that maybe you'd like to see from Born Primitive Outdoor. They really do enjoy taking the feedback from you and applying it to their current gear or future projects as well, that obviously they're working on, as you heard kind of the timeline that we talk about here in this episode, etc. So go check it out, guys. I'll leave links down below where you can find Kurt and Born Primitive Outdoor on social media or their website. Also, guys, don't forget to get entered into the over $5,000 hunt gear package giveaway. Go check it out, guys. No purchase required to get entered. Many ways to earn bonus entries. Only a couple of weeks to be able to get entered. Make sure you get entered now. Share it with someone that you love. Maybe someone that keeps talking about needing to update their gear and they just don't do it. Whatever it is, go check it out. And last but not least, guys, I want to see you over at the First Phorm Outdoors Facebook group. Let them know RedBeard sent you. It's worth getting into the group. You're going to find your people there. People that want to get outdoors, people that want to camp, people that want to hunt, people that want to hike, people that want to do all the things. There's a smorgasbord of individuals in there. Go check it out. With that being said, have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it.